Okay, so now we're going to get into another data structure, another type of object in JavaScript, which is an object literal. So basically, these are key value pairs. So I have an example here. We have a variable called person, and then in curly braces, we have just key value pairs that are separated by commas. So basically, we have the key on the left side, then we have a colon, and then we have the value, which can be a string, a number, Boolean, whatever. And these are keys, these are values. These are also called properties, like this is the name property, this is the age property, and so on. So let's jump into VS Code and let's start to work with objects. So I'll go ahead and just create the same one we just saw. So we'll say person, and I'll set that to a set of curly braces. And then inside there, we're going to have a name, let's say John Doe. And then we'll do an age of 30, and we'll do, let's say, is admin, and that will be a Boolean. So we'll say true. Okay, now as far as accessing data from this object, first of all, let's just console log the whole thing, see what we get. So same thing, just the key value pairs. We also have our prototype chain, which has some methods on it. There's a lot that we can do with objects. In this section, I'm going to just go over some of the basics and some of the easy stuff. And then later on, we'll get into more complicated ways of working with objects. Now, to access a specific property from an object, we use the dot syntax. So I'll go ahead and actually, you know what? Let's create our X variable, because there's a few things I want to log out. So let's just do that. And then let's set X to person. And then to access the name, for instance, I can say person.name. Now we can also use bracket notation. So for example, I could say person, and then I could use brackets and say I want the age. I'm sorry, this needs to be a string. And I get 30. So this, you're going to see this a lot more, the dot syntax rather than the brackets, but you can do it this way. Now let's say we want to have an object within an object, like maybe an address with some fields. So let's say address, and then we're going to set that to another set of curly braces, and in here we'll have the street, let's say 123 Main Street, and then we'll have the city, say Boston. Let's say for the state, we'll do Mass. Now, if I want to access, let's say, the state, what I would do is say person dot and then the address and then the state. If we do that, then I get Mass. We could also have arrays in here. Like, so if I wanted to do, let's say, hobbies, set that to an array, and we'll say music and sports. And then if I wanted to access that array, I could of course just say person dot hobbies, and that will give me the whole array. If I wanted to access, let's say, the first item or element in the array, then I would use, of course, my brackets, just like I would with any array, and that gives me music. Now we can also update properties, so I can say person dot name, and I'll set that to, let's say, Jane Doe. And then if I log X, we'll just set it to person. And you'll see now the name is no longer John Doe, it's Jane Doe. If I wanted to update, let's say, is admin, I could say person dot is admin, or I could use this syntax, is admin. And what is it to begin with? It's true, so I'll set it to false. And then if I log the person, we should see is admin as false. All right, now if you want to completely remove a property from an object, you can use delete. So I could say delete and then person dot, let's delete the age. If I do that and I log the object, you'll see there's no more age. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is that we can add a function to as a property, but I know we haven't gone over functions, so don't worry about it if you don't understand this. But let's say person, and by the way, I don't think I mentioned, you can not only change properties, but you can add a new one. Like if I want to say person dot has children and set that to true, and now if I save, you'll see that has children has been added. Okay, so you can add properties as well. Now, like I said about functions, let's say we want to create a function in this property called greet. So I'll say person.greet equals a function, and this is just how we define a function. Again, I'll get into this very soon. And then I'm going to console log here template literal and say hello, my name is, and then I can actually access other properties in here with the this keyword. So I could say this.name. And now if I want to call this function, I'll have to do person dot, actually let's just, well, we'll just do that. Yeah, person dot greet, and we need to execute it with parentheses. And you'll see right here, hello, my name is Jane Doe. All right, so we assigned a function to this greet property, and we were able to access the name using the this keyword, which I'll talk much more about later. Now, another thing that you can do, but I really wouldn't suggest it, is when you're creating your keys, you can use like more than one word. So let's say I wanted to use first name, like first space name. I wouldn't recommend doing this. But if you are going to do this, then you can just surround it with quotes, right? So I could say first name and then set that to Brad, and then we'll do a last name. So let's say last space name. And now if I wanted to access, let's say I want to access first name. If I try to do this, first space name, this is another reason I wouldn't recommend doing this. Right now it's telling us person has already been defined. So let's change this to person two, and it's still going to give me an error because it says unexpected identifier name. Now, if you're going to do this, again, I wouldn't recommend it using multiple words like this. This should be in this form or even this form. But if you do happen to come across this and you want to access it, you have to use the bracket notation. So you would do it like this. First space name, and you'll see that will work. All right, so in the next video, we're going to look more at nesting objects within objects, but I also want to show you how to use the spread operator with objects. We saw how to use it with arrays, but we can also use it with objects.